Welcome to Gray Areas for July 23rd, 2024, episode 632. It's barely even in frame, but Sean still insists on closing the bathroom door.
And he's gone.
He's gone.
He's out.
He's not even here anymore.
Maybe if he decided to show up more than 5 seconds before the show started, he could close the door before we went live. But nope, he's a professional.
It wouldn't catch it. I wouldn't catch it until the show started.
So he stares at it in the background.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Who missed the last 2 weeks? Who was that? I don't think it was me. I think it was you.
Oh, it was reasons. Oh, reasons that I gave prior.
I just wanted to clarify. It was you, right? Okay. Double checking.
I'm
glad we cleared that up.
These are a straw man argument right here. This is absolutely no bearing on anything.
You can't make a straw man argument because you weren't here.
I'm sorry.
The no man argument.
What you're saying with that shit in your mouth.
It looks chocolatey this time. It actually doesn't look like cement, at least.
It just looks like brown.
Dropping in some brown food dye was really effective.
I got new granola.
God, I hate it so much.
Well, I found out that the granola at that I was getting at local was $20, and I was like, "Well, I can't do that anymore." So I got like 4 different bags of granola.
You just couldn't afford it
for $20.
You just couldn't afford it.
Yeah, that's too much for granola. It was good granola, but $20 granola, that's crazy.
You know whose economy that's the fault of, right?
Yeah, we might even talk about that today.
I need to clarify something. You purchased the granola, took it home, ate it for consecutive weeks, and then realized that it was $20.
Yeah,
that was the order of events
next time
here?
I bought it, I think I bought it amongst a bunch of other stuff, and last time I just bought the granola, and they were like, "That'll be $18.50," and I was like, "I'm sorry,
Dave. You've known
all
Sean.
I got was this one bag of granola."
Dave, you've known Sean for how long?
A long time, but about probably pushing 15 years.
Don't you feel like that's exactly how his fucking brain would work, though? I feel like that's actually a really good example of it.
It blows my mind every time because he can purchase 6 things and it comes out to $85, but he cannot compartmentalize the items into individual things of how much they cost.
Because at one point it's so much money, it's like who can even keep track of that anymore?
Yeah,
I like to imagine he's just wandering through the store, grabbing shit off of shelves, not caring what the price is. So to him, when he gets like bananas and oranges in his granola and it's $80, he just thinks that what's a banana? $10. So.
Thank you for that reference.
So,
I appreciate that reference so much right now.
So he just imagines everything averages out. But when it's just a granola, well, fuck that. That's where it's too much money.
Yeah, I mean, don't you guys get like I get Cosmic Crisp apples. I don't get it because they're the cheapest apples. I get them because they're the best apples.
So then why don't you get the best granola?
Because $18.50 for granola. That's insane. That's insane. That is insane. And also, this granola that I got here for like $6, just as good.
Okay.
As the $20 granola.
Are you sure that we shouldn't taste test granola as one of the episodes? Because I'm really down for that.
Well, I think you and I are, and that's about it.
I would do that. I think it's very funny.
I like granola.
We can find out how much Sean should pay for granola and which one he should blend
we had all these
into his cement shakes.
B-Dubs and McDonald's, and we're just going to do granola.
Yeah, why not?
That's pretty good. I read, Cody, a thing that said if you own a Tesla, that's now the vehicle of the alt-right.
Ooh.
And I was like, you know what? That's true.
Oh, yeah, of course. Because your political views are determined based on a car you purchased
years
ago.
I was thinking, like, look to your left, look to your right. If that's a Tesla owner, they're voting for Trump this election.
Perfect.
Both of them.
How it works.
So it doesn't really, left and right doesn't matter. They're both doing it. All Tesla owners. I'm on to you.
Did you call it Tesla?
Tesla.
Tesla?
This is what they meant. This meant what they meant by stealing the election, right?
Yes.
Because the Tesla's actually going to vote for me is what's going to happen. Yes.
Yeah.
Got it.
It's actually synced up into your big fancy computer that's in there. It just you hit like, whatever radio thing. No, that was a vote. I'm sorry.
Well, ever seen Man of the Year? That terrible movie? There's some glitch. We don't know how Robin Williams became president. It's because every vote for A became C.
Yeah.
And nobody figured that out. It was one of the stupidest movies I've ever seen.
This is why we don't have, voting online.
It was a booth. It was like a glitch in the booth, in the voting booth. Like, so simple. It wasn't some elaborate thing. It's like, it's reading A's and C's. No one caught it.
You're going to do a review of a movie that is how old right now?
Well, it's always funny, Cody, because this is I've talked about this on the show before. I had a friend that was like, you and your girlfriend at the time, you're smart. You'll appreciate it. And I was like, this is the dumbest shit I've ever seen. And it makes me question the person who recommended it heavily.
I feel like you're to this day still questioning them.
I am. Well, I hate him anyway, so it's fine.
Oh man, I didn't realize Dave recommended this movie to you.
This is the guy who he stayed up and he like begged me to keep playing video games. I'm not lying on this story. He begged me because he like never gets to go out of his house. He got in trouble with his girlfriend and apparently said I was egging him on the whole night. And it was a co-op game that we were playing. He said it was competitive and he kept beating me. And I was just like, come on, one more. It's like, why would you paint me in such a negative light?
Called me the fall guy.
Yeah, but he could have just said we continue to play co-op and it would have been fine. No, yeah, Peter, it wasn't you. I know you listen to the show. I would not tell that story. It was a guy in college. He was a big Hawaiian guy. He threatened to beat me up one time.
Because you wouldn't keep playing video games with him?
No, because I guess I didn't take out the trash one time.
Oh.
And he's like, he calls me just screaming, there's maggots in the trash. And I like didn't know what he meant. I was like, what are you talking about? You're screaming. I can't even hear you. It's crazy. Anyways, it's a threat to derail, but this is Dave's fault. He brought in this energy. I could only defend myself.
He brought in this energy by existing?
Yeah, well, no, because he was like, oh, if you were on the time on the show.
You're the one that said he's going to vote for Trump because he has a Tesla. That's how this all devolved. Yeah, I mean, it's your fault then.
So anyway, inflation, guys.
I don't start fights, but I finish them. Remember, he tweeted that? My hero, Elon
I'm pretty
Musk.
sure when I told Chris, I think it's fine if we don't do the game show this week. I think one of my exact comments was, Sean's going to eat up 15 minutes of the show shitting on Dave since Dave's been gone for 2 weeks anyway. So
it's all big. It's all
how far are we in?
Pent up.
Oh, it's only 10. Okay.
I got to release it. Yeah.
You did it more efficiently than I thought. So
I mean,
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's a compliment.
Good for you, I guess. Yeah.
What are you doing here, Chris? Mario list. You weren't here for it. It was the best music of Mario.
Cool.
I was kind of trying to plug.
I'm sorry I missed it.
Yeah, I was thinking Dave would maybe like yes and like, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more. But he just kind of was like, okay.
No. And keep the listener wanting more.
Yeah, the bit just died.
There's a Mario
that's how you do it. Yes and how about no? Period.
Stop what you're doing. No, there was. I actually want to talk about massive campaign related news because you guys had a whole episode last week that I wasn't a part of that I wish I would have, and I actually agreed with like all of your opinions, which was kind of odd. But it was. I mean, and then of course, a couple days after that comes out, bombshell drops of everything that everyone kind of wanted to happen. I guess some people wanted to happen where Biden drops out, and some people didn't. So I don't know. Like
I have a question.
Feels like the. Yeah.
I have a question for you.
I'm talking through this.
Because this is a great... Yeah. I'm glad that you brought that up because did Republicans want him to drop out? Because I thought that they did. But, well, okay. No. All I heard for weeks on Republican radio was like, he needs to drop out. Here's why he needs to do it. I wish he would do it. He sucks. He's the worst. Okay? So he drops out. And then they're like, well, if he's going to drop out, then he's not fit to be the president. Now he needs to quit. He needs to also abdicate the throne of the White House. And you're like, what? I feel like sometimes you guys just complain. That's what it's starting to feel like.
Which, by the way, in my opinion, would be a really big win for Kamala if she was just the incumbent president running for re-election.
Well,
you stupid fucks.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't think you want that.
Yeah.
She gets to start doing the job and campaign saying, well, now I have experience as president.
Yeah. So
why would you do that?
When I hear Sean Hannity and Mark Levin and all those guys being like, he needs to drop out. What a lunatic. What a crazy senile. And then he does. I'm like, I don't actually you guys wanted him to drop out. I think he was easily beatable. And then he does drop out and they're like, well, that's not enough. Why didn't he drop out earlier?
You got to pivot. You got to pivot on your pivot.
No matter what, you have to complain. That's what it is.
That's America.
It's almost like they're just trying to get people to listen and react to it.
It's called First Take. Sean, have you ever watched First Take?
I know, but you know something else that I realized? I watched NPR, and like, of course they're left leaning. Like, of course, but they're left leaning in a way of like, let's shove climate change down your throats, which is fine because I like it. I like hearing stories about climate change, but to a right person, they're like, that's all they talk about. They will educate. Republican radio is only shit talking Democrats constantly, and not even for policy. They're just like, he's a son of a bitch. He sucks. Fuck that guy. Like, what are you saying?
You did live through eight. Sorry, go ahead.
Have you ever though encountered the liberal side of that same thing?
Yes.
I mean, because it exists, you just don't listen to it or find it necessarily, because it does absolutely exist. It's called Threads.
Yes.
I don't know if you've ever been on Threads. That's all it is.
Fine. I'm just saying equivalent radio and radio. One side is, and I don't know, like I don't listen to CNN podcasts. I don't. If you want to equate The View, I know The View shit, but like no one should watch The View anywhere for any reason. So.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's funny. The pivot has been funny. I'll give you that, with the idea of Biden should absolutely drop out, and then he did. Well, no, he can't drop out because he was already picked by the delegates. So that's just subverting the democratic process.
Yeah.
And I laugh at that because it's like, you guys absolutely wanted him to stay in because it was already kind of a lame duck deal, and the Republican side now is basically like, oh crap, well, this is a variable we didn't account for. We thought we had this in the bag, so let's cause a stir, which is what politics is, and what drives me insane so much.
It's interesting because none of this really matters, and here's what I mean by that: 40% of the country was going to vote for whomever on the Democratic side, and 40% was going to vote for Trump, no matter what was happening on either side of this election. Now, what happens in the other 20% matters a lot, because obviously that's the entire implication thing that happens, right? Like that's what sets it all up. If it's 47% for one guy and 45% for the other, that's how you decide it. The Electoral College matters. Fine. But in playing in those margins now, we've had two different incidents in the span of 8 days that have really redefined this race in ways that I don't know that anybody really could have expected. Obviously, can't really plan for an assassination attempt. Clearly, the Secret Service couldn't, so how can anybody else do it? And then you could certainly have planned for Biden dropping out, but to do it this late, almost into August, almost less than 100 days from the election, is unprecedented. So now we're in this kind of wild card territory where I'm not entirely sure what's going to happen next.
Yeah, and I guess there's some frustration for me because I was going to be very conflicted because I can't vote Trump, and I was going to have a hard time voting Biden. And so I was like, do I vote fucking for independent and like throw my vote away? We talked about this on the show. I, for the most part, have no problem voting for Kamala. So that is very anecdotal, and I know that, but it's like, oh, problem solved. But there's still frustration in, I know it's hindsight, but like if you were going to drop out, I fucking wish you had done it when everybody was calling for it weeks ago. So the left could have like been, building a better case and just not having all that wasted time for something that you did anyway.
Yeah, and I think that's my biggest issue with it, is that I did see that from some Democratic folks on Twitter and whatnot, where it's like, this was all the plan. They waited until the Republicans locked in Trump as their candidate, and now they can't take these backsies, so they're going to have Kamala charge in and steal the day. And it's like, that's a terrible fucking idea. If that ever was the plan, and it wasn't, you should have done this a year ago and given her a full running start and not whatever this is.
And not to mention, like, I'm quite sure Biden didn't exactly make this decision himself. This was very much he wouldn't have gone on the campaign trail saying, I'm in it to win it. I'm going to run. I am doing this. I'm blah, blah, blah. I'm doing this. And then a month later be like, oh, hey, never mind. My bad, guys. I am actually
fundraising.
There was a lot of pressure.
Yeah, fundraising made the decision for him. It's pretty clear.
Yeah, because it was dropping, and then is picked up lately because he's out, and so it all comes down to
he was mad.
People told him to.
From everything I've heard, I don't fucking know, but from everything I heard, it was not like a pleasant decision. He felt absolutely pressured, and that he could make no other decision than but to drop
Sean, the good news is he'll forget in 1 week that he dropped out anyway, so it doesn't even matter.
Yeah. What? Yeah.
He'll forget he was president soon enough.
What I hope we don't have is an interview later where he's like, I'm excited to be president again. I can't
that's
wait.
really sad.
To build really quickly off of Chris's point of like only like 20% of this matters. It also only matters for like 6 states, whatever like the handful of us are that are probably going to decide this election, which seems like Nevada, Arizona, Michigan, Pennsylvania, maybe Georgia. I think I'm missing 1 or 2 in there. It's like those are the only ones that are basically going to be Ohio, are more or less going to be undecided. I've looked at the fucking the map and how everything's leaning and polling and all that. It's like there's like 2 states on each side that are like leaning that way, and then like 3 or 4 that are undecided. I'm like, cool. So how do those 6 states feel about this decision? That's basically all that fucking matters. Because California, California's not going to change. Texas isn't going to change. Florida's not going to change anymore.
Yeah, Dave.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. If you maybe were about to make a great point, but as an alt-right Tesla owner, I wanted to ask you a question. Anecdotally, again, I'm seeing that they have had a much harder time attacking Kamala than they had. Obviously,
you could just go with her last name.
Attacking Biden.
You could just say Harris, by the way, if it's too.
I know,
if it's
but
too
I'm
tough
trying
for
to
you.
like make a point of saying it correctly. And what they brought up is like, oh, she brought up the coconut tree, and she brought up. I wrote down a couple examples. One was really. Oh, can you believe they played the sound clip that she's asking to revise the dietary guidelines in the U.S. You're like, whoa, big time controversy. So I'm just saying they don't have the same fire in attacking Harris, and I think that's interesting.
The platform you attack her on is something that you like. It's not going to get. I don't know. Moderates might lean toward her because she's super conservative when it comes to imprisonment and jailing, and that's all the cop complaints people had when she was running for president before and was polling at like 4% or whatever the fuck it was. The problem is, I don't know if like very liberal Democrats who should have problems with those policies are going to not vote for her when, again, the platform has been, well, the world under Trump will be terrible. You have no choice. Well, you got a different choice than what Biden would be when you were worried about it. And now it's like, well, you can't find a new excuse of a new thing that you don't want to vote for her or whatever. Like, that's the way to attack her. I don't know that the Republicans need to do that platform in the first place.
Well, it seems
they need
like
to do the platform. They need to do the platform of, hey, this is still the same person that you're running against. The same. Have you been dissatisfied with the price of eggs over the last 4 years? This is the same policies that will continue. That's the argument.
Yes, exactly.
But I guess that in a way is my point. Is like they have to go back to the policies where so much of it with Biden was not policy. It was he's unfit, he's corrupt, Hunter, the laptop, blah, blah, blah. And now they're going to have to do policies, which a lot of times with this group, it makes it seem like almost impotent now. And that's their fault because it was such supercharged language for so long. Now that they're going back to like her stance on immigration. And I feel like a lot of the right is like, oh, well, like that's not as exciting anymore. We want to put her behind bars.
Isn't this the same issue? Isn't this the same issue with attacking the person more than attacking the policies?
Yeah, exactly.
Because of everything that was on the flip side, just because I like to play devil's advocate, the flip side of everyone saying in 2015 and 2016 before Trump got elected, oh, World War III is coming, man. He's got access to the nuclear code. We're all screwed. Oh, the economy's going to tank, blah, blah. It didn't happen. Like the 2016 to 2020 was not a bad time economically in America. You want to argue good, bad of other things, that's fine. But economically, it wasn't. So if you're going to come at me again and say everyone who votes for Trump is basically voting for nothing but fascism and war and blah, 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 all these things, like, well, we have an example of that not happening. So let's actually attack other things that are worthy of being attacked.
Well, and here's problem number 2. They have now got an opponent who is much firmer on 2 stances in particular that are going to galvanize Democratic voters: abortion and Gaza. Because Joe Biden wasn't doing jack shit about Israel and Palestine, a lot of Democrats were extremely unhappy with his approach to that entire war in Gaza. And obviously, Kamala Harris is much better positioned to speak on anything related to abortion than anybody else in this race is. And she's going to get a lot of support from her own voters because of that. Abortion's been a powder keg topic for Republicans, and they've been fighting amongst themselves as to what the best approach is going to be. Anytime they even start talking about a total ban, their fucking popularity tanks. So in a sense, that's one more reason, in addition to the stuff you already said, both Dave and Sean, about like, in a way, I think you may have awakened the sleeping beast here. Now, I'm also not of the opinion that, like what some people are saying, it's like, oh, now the Democrats are going to win easily. It is not that simple at all. It's still an uphill battle. If I was voting with my wallet, if I was placing bets, which, by the way, seems like an especially depraved thing to do over the presidency of the United States. But you can. You sure can. If I was placing bets, I would bet on Trump at this particular moment. But we have 3 months to see what the hell this looks like before that's going to start mattering. All bets are off now.
I watched a lot of people lose parlays when Hillary didn't beat Trump, by the way. I would never, ever in my mind ever bet on that thing. But a lot of people lost monies that weekend because it was during the fall with football. And I watched a lot of people I know thought that Hillary was a slam dunk minus whatever it was to put in there. And it was really funny for like a brief period of time.
That you would bet on the presidency, and it's doubly weird that you would bet as part of you would mix.
Yeah, you cross into sports.
Yeah, that's
well, they all thought it was a slam dunk, minus
right.
100 something. So it's a great parlay booster when you think it's in the bag, and then it fucking costs everyone money.
And really quick aside, we won't spend time on it, but to me, the strangest thing of all is people who bet on wrestling.
Yeah.
Which is also totally viable. And you're like, it's scripted. Sure, it can change last minute every now and then, injuries or just story rewrites, but like, why the fuck would you ever touch that?
Mm-hmm.
Because
is it even on the books?
It's not in.
It feels like that's
in most American ones. It's not, but offshores it is. U.S. doesn't let you do that because it does acknowledge that's predetermined. Spoilers for everyone. Yeah. Wrestling's fake.
What?
Yeah,
I know. But this is sort of akin to that, just in the sense that it does all feel big and bombastic, and some people, more so fringe lunatics, would be like, it's all rigged. The shadow government decides who will be elected, and we're not really interested in that conversation. But the point is, like, it's such a volatile market, and now, if you're asking prognosticators, I mean, we haven't seen anything like this before, so what precedent do you go to? You don't even really have any polling yet. Any polls you made in the immediate aftermath almost don't mean anything because we don't even know. Like, Biden hasn't even addressed the country yet, which is also baffling, by the way.
Yes,
it's fucking Tuesday night. You tweeted out Sunday morning, and you're waiting until Wednesday, when again, tick, 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 tick.
Yeah.
So we don't even know what Biden is going to say. Harris has addressed a couple different groups since then, but not really done like a formal acceptance speech. I guess the convention will be for that, but like everything's happening so quickly, and yet nothing is happening. It's very weird.
It is very weird. And I'm like, Biden is like, how am I supposed to talk to everybody? It's like, you're the president. You are the president right now, sir.
But Sean, it's embarrassing.
I don't want
does anyone find it funny that he posted his resignation letter on X, owned by the alt-right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, it just made me kind of laugh a little bit. Like, it's like, oh, this cesspool of nothing but republicanism that everyone says it is, which is way overblown. But it's just funny to me.
It would have been only better if you put it on like the Trump's like Truth
Social.
Yeah. Social. Yeah.
In general, though, I mean, you're right. That is funny for that reason. It's also just weird in the first place. The president of the United States tweeted his resignation effectively. Just on a Sunday morning, he was like, and obviously it was a picture of a message that he had spent time constructing. It wasn't like he tried to hit a character limit, but you're like, what the hell?
I mean, if that came on Friday at 5:01, it could not have been more of a Friday news dump type item.
Yeah.
At least he had the courtesy of waiting till Sunday where it was a business day the next day, because if he had done it Friday at 5, it would have been the funniest shit I've ever seen.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I'm out.
Today was my last day. This is a really random thing, but I just heard this on one of the podcasts I was listening to that was making fun of this a little bit. Biden is so old, but I wish I knew this last week when we were going over why he probably wasn't fit to be president anymore. When he was born, he was closer to the end of Abraham Lincoln's presidency than he was to the start of his own fucking presidency. He was 77 years after Lincoln, and he started at 78. And I was like, history's always weird when you look at like what's closer to what and how everything's like 50 years apart on each side. And I heard that like 5 minutes before walking in here for the show, and I was like, man, if you had just tweeted that like 6 months ago, I'd been like, yeah, we need to probably make a change here. I can't fucking believe that.
The funny thing is, Trump's
not any better.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah,
exactly. And
years younger.
Exactly. And like that's like, okay, so when Trump's presidency started, he was like 3 years off of it. And I'm like,
yeah, oh yay.
I'm just like, holy shit, man. Like we bitched about this last week, so I won't go into it, but I'm like, how did none of these parties build anybody up? Which is a funny transition to what the fuck Harris is going to do as her vice president.
Well, here's one more problem, by the way, real quick.
Yeah.
So I don't want to belabor the point from last week either. We talked about, the third-party stuff, which has always been a frustration. How old's RFK? Pop quiz.
69, 70?
His age starts with a 7. How old is Jill Stein?
78, 76, something like that.
7.
Her age starts with a 7. She's 74.
Okay.
And then the other guy, whose name I'm forgetting, also in his 70s. Every candidate for this race, even the fringe ones, the third-party ones that don't ultimately matter, but the 4 or 5 main people, all in their fucking 70s. So Harris now, who's almost 60, by the way, doesn't really look it, but is 59, now looks like the fountain of youth in relation to all, and it's like, what are we fucking doing? I'm not even trying to be ageist with this. I certainly believe that there's the capacity for somebody in their 70s and maybe even their 80s if they're in the right frame of mind to maybe do this, but it might be the toughest job on the planet, and we're not sending our best to it.
It is funny that leads into the thought of Trump's VP pick being someone who's our age, which kind of blows my mind that he's that young and a VP pick. But I wonder if that is an attempt to kind of bridge that gap a little bit and say, like, look, hey, yeah, I know Arcan's getting older. This is his last shot at this thing. So let's have a guy fresh and young, ready to bring up the next generation, basically, is what it kind of feels like. And yeah, you're right. It is kind of interesting that Kamala feels like a fountain of youth comparatively because she's only 60.
I would think so, Dave, just because obviously Trump can only serve one more term. Should he get elected, he can't run, well, until he tries to change laws. He can't run for a third term. So it's like, well, then Vance naturally becomes the shift into that from a much younger generation. It's like, well, now the Republicans be like, we can't hit us on the age part of this anymore. We're going to address that right now, right away, which is why I'm really curious what the Democrats are going to do on the flip side of theirs. Granted, Harris can run for 2 terms, so it doesn't have the same kind of impact, but it's there nonetheless.
Who the fuck is JD Vance, by the way?
Great question.
He looks like the most milquetoast fucking dude I've ever seen in my whole life.
Yeah. I hate making fun of people's looks.
Yeah,
I'm
Sean.
curious.
I mean, well,
Sean.
What do you have? I'll make fun of his
say,
looks.
we can make fun.
He was intentionally. You can say you don't want to make fun of people's looks. There was a reason he's selected as Trump's running mate, is because he's the most vanilla-looking motherfucker that I've ever seen.
But your question is valid of who is he, because I hadn't heard of him previously, and the fact he's as young as he is and relatively unknown is intriguing to me. Of like, it's an odd pick, kind of came out of nowhere type of pick, I guess is the best way to describe it.
There was some like speculation about it in the lead up. There was basically 3 main candidates, and he was one of them. But it is interesting to see Republicans trying to hammer Harris for her lack of experience, as they call it. And it's like, now Vance is a VP pick and not a presidential pick. It's not the same, but just like we talked about the prospect of Biden dying or something, we're gonna have the same conversation about Trump, who again will be in 82 or 83 at the end of this 4-year term if he happens to win. So you're telling me that I'm expected to believe that JD Vance is ready to be president? Because I don't believe that in the slightest. He was a senator for 2 years. The fuck does he know?
No one can find any middle ground here.
That's why I was kind of hoping for Marco Rubio, where I was like, all right, and I don't necessarily agree with a lot of what Rubio does, but at least I know he understands politics. I don't know that JD Vance does, because if he did, he probably wouldn't have called Trump America's Hitler a few years ago, because that's going to get replayed over and over and over again for the next 3.5 months.
I kind of want to go in a cave for the next 3.5 months. I think that might be a solid plan, and just not worry about this whatsoever, because I thought 2020 was going to be nasty, and 2024 was shaping out to be nasty, and now it's just a shit show, is like the best way I can describe it, because everyone's got ammo on everybody in every single way, it seems, of something, whether it wants to be policy, age, looks, inexperience, whatever it is. It's crazy.
Does your Tesla have the ability to charge your little Republican bunker? Just go both ways or only one way?
What are you talking about?
Those trucks, you buy those trucks as 2-way charging, where like it'll charge you charge the truck, and then the truck can charge your home if you ever needed to.
I didn't have a question about the charging. It was about the what bunker?
Oh, about your neon flags.
He called it a Republican bunker, which I don't know why he has to have a party affiliation for the bunker.
I don't know why he constantly thinks I'm a Republican, because I don't just, get down on my knees to Democrats every morning. So,
You should.
Oh.
There, who's going to save you?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the future that liberals want.
Yeah, there's who's going to save you, as I have a gun to the back of my head telling me to say this.
Yeah.
This is exactly.
I basically called the Democratic Party terrorists last week, so I don't think I'm all the way on board with them either.
A regular bunker is a bunker. A Republican bunker, you have like AK-47s on the wall.
Oh, okay.
And flags on everything.
So just an end of the world bunker. You didn't have to go with Republican. You could have just said,
No. Everything is dressed in flags.
No,
there's eagles everywhere.
It's the end of the world bunker that's coming when Trump gets elected. That's what we're afraid of. It's the Democratic bunker.
You have a Democratic bunker? Oh my God.
Well, that's not going to make us survive. How are we going to live?
I wish you would have said that a long time ago. I would have stopped with the alt-right.
So you just have have bags and bags of fucking granola in your bunker?
Yeah, exactly.
$20 per bag.
I am ready for a granola episode.
Yeah. Oh, man. I wish I was told all this such a long time ago. Oh, I
Now
look
maybe
like
you
a
can stop
fool
making fun
now.
Even less than that's a great comment there, Peter.
Yeah.
Actually, this is a bit of a tangent when it comes to the flags. I feel a little sad, and I felt this way years ago, where it feels like the American flag has almost been like co-opted as if you have an American flag displayed, you're like, oh, you're an alt-right asshole.
I know.
It's like, but it's like the American flag. It's not supposed to be that way.
Well,
and
Dave,
it kinda sucks.
they got told they
No.
couldn't use the Confederate flag anymore. What the fuck did you want them to do?
Right. And they have a blue stripe version of that flag and
Yeah.
some other versions of that flag, but and now they can put it upside down. That also means something.
Of course, yeah, get it. That.
Yeah, I do kind of miss when it was okay to be patriotic. I think
Yeah,
it's not.
absolutely.
Sean misses 9/11.
I think there is there is a stance of like it's okay to still like enjoy your country, like and even acknowledge like
Well,
there's flaws, but we don't have to now hate it.
It's Olympics time, so maybe we'll see everyone unify under our flag for like
Probably
3
not.
weeks.
That is a funny thing and maybe it's the channels of which I look, but a lot of the people who post online and social media, and that's kind of a little bit of a feel of what's going on in the world, but not really. It feels like the liberal side a lot has the America is awful, capitalism's the worst, we need to end all of this, and it's like, I wish people had that a little bit more. It's like, yeah, you can acknowledge the flaws of your country, much like you can accept the good parts of your country too. It's almost like a marriage in that way, where it's like, yeah, my wife isn't perfect, but that doesn't mean I can't appreciate the good things that are there, right? Like, why is it we have to either shit on it completely or bow down to it completely? Oh, polarism. I love it.
Because that's our take culture now.
Yeah.
You have to pick a side.
It's awful.
And isn't it
awful.
nice that effectively Trump has managed to do both at the same time? Because
Mhm.
the whole basis of a Make America Great platform essentially is acknowledging that it isn't. And in some ways, that's supposedly just pointing at what Democrats have done. But it's like, no, in a lot of ways, Republicans are like, no, the USA is the best no matter what. So then which lane are you in?
What was the new quote that they were doing? It might have just been for the RNC, but it was like "Make America Strong Once Again."
That's too many
was,
words.
Like the main thing.
It's too many words.
And I was like, why are they not just saying "Make America"? Like, why are they changing it to something stupid?
Make America Greater is just really easy to
They're
say. You
running
could have
on
just
the
fucking said that.
platform. Make America strong again.
Please.
No, strong once again. Once again was the part that killed me.
Well, you see, Sean, it has been ruined by the last 4 years.
Right.
We were
You
strong,
can't
and
go-
now we're weak.
Yeah, we got strong. We
Now
were not
we're
strong.
weak.
Then we got strong. Then we got weak again. Now once again, we must be strong. It was wild.
It brings down that same idea of like attacking policy, where like there are things that you can attack about Biden's policy. Afghanistan, let's start there. With like, hey, just an example of like, that was a horrible thing. If you want to talk about strength, military stuff like that, that was a horrible decision that was made in that time. But nobody talks about that when you're attacking Democrats, because we want to attack the crazy things that they're going to do. And they're going to make sure that, take away all your guns or whatever the hell the argument is. I can't stand the way arguments go nowadays. And we can't even have a nice conversation or a debate about it.
That's why I'm curious. If we ever get past all of this, I'm like, I want to know what the debates in like a primaries with no incumbent happens again, where it's like, okay, so now we're going to debate on, I think we should cut taxes by 5%. No, I think we should do it by 4.5%. Here's how I'm going to do it. And here's all the shit that you used to have in the debates, which was like kind of boring, but at the same time, like actually informative. You learned some shit about everybody. And I'm like, will we ever get back to that? And then if we don't, what happens when you put like 6 people up on the stage that are running? And again, not when Trump's running and there's a bunch of Republican people who were never going to actually be the presidential candidates. It was just bullshit for ratings on TV. Like, what do those look like now in 2024 or 2028? I'm really fascinated to see what the fuck that would look like. Because let's say Trump wins. Vance isn't going to be, he's going to have to go through the thing just like Biden did. As a VP, you don't get gifted the situation that Kamala is going into right now. So that's still going to have to happen. Same for the Democrats. If Kamala doesn't win, is she ever going to run for president again, or was this her one shot? If she loses, do they go back to square one? And we have 5, 6 new people out there on the stage explaining what their actual policies are, or are we never going to get to that point again? Or do we get it when it's insular to the party? And I'm really fascinated by because I used to like that. I grew up liking that.
We're gonna get back. Maybe I'm an idiotic optimist, but I think that is more the natural state. I think all of this is an aberration, and I hope I'm right. And it's not just, well, now we've come too far. There's no going back. It's going to be all fighting and shouting and one-liners for all of the rest of the time.
I mean, maybe I sound like a political nerd, but like that was exciting when it's like, oh, we have like 5 candidates who are like, oh, these are people who are like a 2-term senator, a 5-term House of Representatives, like the former VP. It's like, oh shit, you have a bunch of people who've been in the government, know how it works, are qualified, and they're talking about shit that's like actually is going to affect you. Like, I would love to hear how every Democrat wants to approach student loan forgiveness or whatever the fuck it would be, and actually have those conversations and discussions like we did when Biden ran against Warren and Buttigieg and Harris and all this shit. I actually like those debates, and I like that time when we go through primaries. And
Cody,
like,
this is going to blow your mind.
What?
Do you remember they used to ask the candidates, what do they want to do? They would say they want to do it, and they said, what is your plan?
Plan to do it?
And then they would outline a
plan?
plan. Like step by step, here's the plan I want to implement. And not just obfuscate and make shit up and deflect the question. Yeah.
Because like if Trump doesn't win, I am under the impression, assuming he's alive, he runs for president again. And
I don't know.
I guess I'm just
back-to-back
blindly
losses
ignorant.
would be pretty damaging for the MAGA movement.
It's true.
Because it's all
And
about strength.
not
It's
to
all
mention-
about winning. And you can plug your ears and say everything's rigged. But when it happens twice in a row, all of a sudden, I think the calculus changes a bit.
I mean-
and not to mention his age.
Yes,
and
of course.
I don't know. I'm hopeful, and Sean, maybe I'm that optimistic person like you are, where this is the last Trump election. It's got to be. Like he can't run in 2028. It can't.
Well-
If he wins, he can't run. If he loses, it can't run.
So I'm
this is
optimistic
it.
about the politics getting better. I am.
Yes.
The fact that Trump is running again makes me think, why not? Why not? Yeah, I know it's 2 in a row instead of 1 in a row,
They doubled down on the rigging.
but like, I don't think Trump's fans are like, well, the only reason we like him is because like the election was rigged. I think, first of all, they're just going to use that example again. It was rigged again, and we need to change the voting because this is just going to keep happening. But also, like, they're just like blind love for this guy. So unfortunately, I do think he might run again. Possibly.
I think he's going to be too far into cognitive decline to even have a chance.
Sure. I mean,
That's
he
fair.
might be held back by his own
And if
self.
he's out
but,
there
like,
ranting and raving twice as bad as he already is and has fallen apart more in the last 8 years to this point, even his closest people are going to have some really difficult conversations. And we've seen some people who try to use the Trump playbook. Kerry Lake can't fucking win. Ron DeSantis got eaten alive by his own party. So,
Yeah.
like, I'm not sure who else follows this playbook that's going to have success. I'm not saying it's impossible. It's a strong movement that's tapped into an undercurrent of voters who feel like they're not being represented and heard. But at a certain point, if the tired message isn't working, establishment Republicans are going to have to take a serious look at things and go, maybe this is time we cut the cord,
Well,
because we can't lose 12 straight years worth of presidential elections
Yeah.
because we're attached to this losing, sinking ship.
well, Trump's whole thing was he was an outsider, right? And I think people that still matters. And like all this, like Kerry Lake and all these other candidates, they're not. They're mired in the political system. So that's always going to be a thing kind of unique to Trump. And yeah, I don't know. I hope you're right.
And I mean, I think it'll be interesting at that point because we talked about the 2-party system and all that. Well, if Trump siphons off a group of people and the establishment Republican Party gets back to where it was in 2004, 2008, whatever it may be, you shift into that direction. Like, do you actually start to split where you have a 40, 25, 25 split of how you're going to vote? Now, are they going to eat each other alive to let a Democrat repeat as being reelected? I don't know. Maybe if they're already the incumbent, you just punt the fucking election because you're like, well, if Harris wins in 2024, she could eat theoretically, if she's not doing a total fucking terrible job, get reelected in 2028. Do you punt the 2028 election, letting Trump split it apart if he was still like determined and stubborn enough to try and run? And then do you reassess? I can't believe I'm going all the way to 2032, but then do you reassess because at that point he is 90 something years old and you actually can try to figure out how to do all this stuff? And yes, that is.
There's also no chance he
almost
lives
feels-
to 90.
Yeah. I mean,
Just none. Sorry.
you're right. I'm just speaking hypothetical of like,
Yeah.
do you get back to an actual thing where you're bordering on having an actual third-ish party that has a different platform? And then are you actually forced as the Republican Party to do our normal debates where you line up 5 of them and be like, hey, let's have some actual conversations about where our party should go?
What's crazy to me, I got really excited. This is a little bit of a tangent. After Obama got elected again, because I remember having this conversation with my dad and thinking, man, the Republicans are never going to win another election unless they really change their platform. And I think like some of the economic ideas, there's something to conservatism that has benefits, but they got to change the hatred towards anybody that's not like them, pretty much, and the xenophobia and all that. Like, so they have to kind of transform their platform. And I was almost a little bit excited of what a conservative platform could be when it wasn't mired in such hate. And then Trump came on, and I was like, you know what? Not only do we not need to do that, I'm going to lean into it. We're going to ramp it up, and then everybody.
Yeah, you wanted to zig, and they zagged.
Right.
Yes.
It changed all right.
It changed. Yeah, you were right, Sean. They did change.
Great.
You called it,
It
Sean.
wasn't as satisfying as I was hoping it was gonna
Sean's
be.
actually the originator of the MAGA movement.
Yes.
That's great to know.
It's in my manifesto. Yeah.
Remember 2012 when we thought it was the most contentious election ever with Romney and Obama shaking hands and complimenting each other?
Yeah.
It was so contentious back then.
Yeah.
I mean, they got into it a little bit in that debate. There's a clip out
They
there
did.
that doesn't show any of that, and they got at each other's throats a bit during the
They did.
debate. But it was still cordial, and they didn't hate each other.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I don't even necessarily know that Trump and Biden hate each other. By all accounts, when they had that conversation after Trump had the assassination attempt, it was super cordial. You know, we had the leak from the RFK conversation that Trump was actually sort of like taken aback by it. Like, there is still something to be done about the country and its values hidden somewhere behind all this theatrics. I'm just ready to move on from this era because I'm tired of Republicans just plugging their ears and pretending like nothing ever is against them, that it's either we win or it's fraud. And I'm tired of Democrats looking at the situation and going, well, I don't think Republicans are going to do that again. This time, surely they won't do this thing that we don't agree with. This time, surely they won't go to this level. And it's like, I don't know what you've been watching the last 8 years, guys, but they can and will.
Yeah. To punctuate that, how long did it take? All our thoughts of maybe Trump will be more somber a little more collected. It took 20 minutes of his speech at the RNC and before he went completely like off his rocker again, maybe worse than ever before. Like, yeah. Okay, so it's never going to change. Never.
I mean, if someone shot at me, I'd get angrier, to be fair. I'd be less cordial.
I'm
I'm not trying to give Trump credit, but I'm just like, I'd be less.
YOLO.
I'd just be like, yeah, fuck this. Man, if you're going to shoot at me, then I'm just going to go real crazy.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
you're
You're going to shoot at me? Fuck you.
Fuck you. Exactly.
Yeah, that actually sounds about as much thought went into it.
That's why I also shouldn't be president, so that's fair.
Well,
You're not running that we know of.
I'm not old enough. Sorry.
That's oh geez,
wait a minute.
God, why are you so
I am old
young?
enough. Does
Yeah, I'm not old enough.
But we are, so it's fine.
Yeah, you guys can do it.
Yeah, fine. We crossed that line.
Speaking of USA, I did want to talk a little bit about FIBA and the Olympics and basketball is meant to be played. So you're like, wait a minute, I thought I was tuning into a game show, and you pulled the rug out from me under that, and then you also snuck in a second straight political episode. Now you're going to go straight to basketball? Yes, but only for a little bit. Because, as you probably know, the Olympics are coming up. We said it a little bit ago. And every time this happens, between this and the FIBA World Cup, I'm reminded of like how good basketball could be if we got rid of the way we referee it in the States.
Yeah.
And it's just not
That's
like
insane,
this
isn't
is not a complicated or unique argument I'm making. It's all over the place as people watch these games, so I'm not like, oh, I'm so profound. But it's right, goddammit, because the lack of defensive 3 seconds, the ability to touch the ball once it's hit the rim, the lack of flopping calls everywhere. Like there was
Yeah.
the clip of Embiid
Yep.
jumping into somebody and then not getting rewarded and looking confused. I liked that
Yeah.
confusion. So that's I don't know what you do if you're the NBA. I don't know if you have to completely retrain your referees, if you have to start from scratch, if you bring in the best from around the world and steal some from FIBA. But man, it would be nice if basketball could be like this more often.
Why is it so hard? Like, how is it so hard to understand that if the offensive player creates contact, it's not a foul on the defense?
Yeah,
Like,
but the problem that we have to contend with is if we do that, scoring's going to go down.
Yes.
And if
Fine.
scoring goes down, the NBA will think, oh, that affects our bottom line. It doesn't matter we all agree, but we're into basketball, right? We agree that that's a better form of basketball. But I'm guessing for the casual Twitter crowd who just wants to post highlights on social media, it's like less exciting. They just want high scores.
You can have a bit of both worlds where you allow the hand check, not having a hand check out there, so you have the perimeter play is still open. You and you can space the game. With the way the game is spaced now, the defensive 3 seconds to me doesn't even make sense anymore.
Yeah,
Let's
right.
allow that to happen, because it's actually kind of detrimental almost to just plant somebody under the hoop at that point. But like, allow the perimeter to move around. You'll still get the Steph Curry bombs. You'll get Damian Lillard shooting from, the next generation players who can shoot these long shots will open up the game still, and then just not allow people like Embiid or Doncic or anything like that to just come in there and throw their bodies at people and get foul calls, because free throw shooting is boring. Like, if you want to say that about ratings, free throw shooting gets points, but it's boring.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. They showed such a reticence to stick with any rule change that's ultimately going to impact freedom. And that includes like traveling. Like, we've now taken the gather step, which was somewhat controversial, and you can do so much more than that. And you're getting plays that are like up to 5 steps, and it's just common. And I mean, I would love to see it. They just have not done it so far, or they do it and then they stop doing it, which is infuriating.
To me, it's like, in addition to freeing up the game and making it more flowing and more entertaining, I mean, you're right, Sean. The casual fan in particular just wants to see points, but I'm like, I would be much more fascinated by basketball if, especially with 3 seconds. We even talked about that being an option when they were trying to curtail how ridiculous scoring was just in the same season a few months ago, right? To me, it'd be fascinating to see, like, what do the Timberwolves do? Do they just keep Gobert in the paint where he's the best anyways? He doesn't have to worry about trying to guard people on the perimeter anymore. And then it's also kind of a pick your poison situation, because against the teams that can go 5 out, the Timberwolves can decide, we're just taking away the paint. We'll live with their worst 3-point shooter. And their opposing team can be like, all right, then we're not attacking the paint. We're going to launch more threes. Like, to me, it feels like more strategy would be injected into the game then. But you're right. Casual fans probably don't want that, because they're not the ones really tuning in on a regular basis. They'll watch some of these games with Team USA, just like they'll watch the marquee NBA matchups in the playoffs, but they're not watching them regular season game number 36. So,
yeah.
I yearn for that from like a poetic standpoint. I think it's a beautiful form of basketball, but is it the best for the mainstream? I don't know.
And you know what I would say to counter like my own point is the global stage for basketball is only getting more popular, and they play by these rules. So by extension, I would think you could look at that and be like, well, maybe there's a case.
Yeah,
I want to.
I agree. And the way that it was, the way that it is.
Well, we didn't know you were talking.
Yeah,
usually we get the pretty good cue, but your face
feed
froze, so we didn't know.
So it was weird. But I think you're back now.
Continue.
Sure did.
We know you're talking now. All right, have you given up your point?
It's just
I think
I've given up my point. It's fine. Move on. Okay. I forgot.
I'm kidding. Maybe I'm just jumping to like a weird like thought process of it. I'm like, I feel like the way the NBA might want to adopt this more is if we would fucking lose in the gold medal game, or we wouldn't medal over and over again. Because if the players in America can't fucking play like this and get beat in international play, then maybe you want to teach your players how to play in the international style of all this shit works. Problem is, they're still so fucking good, they still win. Now, we did almost lose to South Sudan the other day, who's going to be in our pool, so that'll be a fun rematch of almost losing to that game. And again, we've lost before, but we've lost in FIBA, and we don't care about the World Cup thing anymore. It doesn't really matter. And so I don't know. Maybe it's just like that's the weird thought process of, if we take a big hit and we lose on a big stage playing somebody else's style of the game, do we have to as a country adjust and play that style of the game?
Well, the question then is
that's a good
further nuance than that, only because even if you change that at the NBA level, are you doing that at college?
Exactly.
Are you doing that in 13-year-old games or high schools? And are you doing that in youth sports? Are you how far does that go? To me, I would want to go wholesale, but are you really going to implement that level of change across the country successfully? Maybe, maybe not.
I mean, we don't even have consistency in high school basketball right now. We don't have shot clocks in certain states
shot
still.
Clocks, free throw rules. Yeah. Traveling is different.
Some 3-point lines. There's still some gyms that don't even have them in 2024, and you're like,
And as someone who has refereed high school games, there's inconsistencies between the same referees in the same game. Like, it's kind of like they don't train you that well.
Well,
really.
We lost a playoff game because ref said you can only take 1.5 steps. So that was really nice. That was fun.
What's a half a step?
Yeah, you start to go down and then you go up. Literally, he was explaining to our player, and he was like, "What do you mean? What are you talking about?" I do. I want to bring something up. I have this has been sort of percolating for a while. When I think about the players in the NBA that are the worst, that the most annoying, the most unlikable, you have Doncic. He's way up there. Embiid is threatening to take his spot. And so I have a question. In the game where we almost got beat by South Sudan, how did Embiid play?
I did not watch the game.
Not especially well.
Not especially well. Okay. So
He played pretty well against Germany last time out,
Okay.
but against South Sudan, he was below average.
So he has had overall a rough Olympics. For someone who talks as much as he talks, he's had a very fucking rough Olympics, and I wish he would just shut up. What really irks me is little comments that it reminds me of the thing when somebody's like, I'm a straight shooter, and then they use that to just say like whatever they want and however tone they choose. The whole thing about LeBron being like, look, LeBron, he's old. He's not the same LeBron anymore. And you got to realize that. And then LeBron goes and saves their fucking ass against South Sudan. And I'm like, Embiid,
And Germany.
Yeah. Embiid, just shut the fuck up. Yeah, we know he's a little older, probably not quite the same threat he was in his prime. That's your teammate. The normal rhetoric is you defend him to the end of the earth. You pull an ant and be like, yeah, we have, what's the difference? We have LeBron. You don't like criticize. He's so whiny, and he puts it behind this thing of like, well, I just tell the truth. And it's like, fuck you. You're such a piece of shit. I fucking hate that guy.
It would be bad enough if it
It's
wasn't
been
for
that way for years.
Yeah, he's always been a shit talker. He's always injured. He's always flopping.
Yeah.
He's always trying to get free throws by any means possible. And I think the most painfully unaware part is like he hasn't done anything. And he's obviously faced his share of criticism for that. You know, the MVP is certainly a questionable thing as well when it's like, yeah, you've never made it out of the second round. I guess maybe it's a conference finals, but like you've never made it finals, you've never won anything. So why do you talk all this shit still? I mean, I guess there's a possibility that like Anthony Edwards is going to be in the same spot in 5 years if he continues the trajectory. But even then, as much as it was annoying to see him crotch chop us to death as we were getting swept, like I think in general he's just enthusiastic about his team and not really trying to aim it at other people. Embiid is constantly trying to bring other people down, including sometimes his own teammates.
And whining and bitching about, oh, no one loves me for the MVP. It's like, bitch, you're always finishing near the top. You fucking won, so shut up now.
And he's also dirty.
Yes.
He's constantly like hurting other players. He flops like a bitch on one end and then like throws elbows at people's heads on the other. It's a tough combination to like.
And then even when he talks, I'm just like, can you shut up? Because he does almost like Trumpism thing where he was like, yeah, like I like playing down low and it's fun because I'm in the post and you know, I wouldn't consider myself a shooter, but I guess I kind of am a shooter too. So I'm kind of like a big, but and you're like, please stop. You don't even know what you're saying. Just shut up. Drives me crazy. Anyways, I guess I hate Doncic. He's still number one, I think, but like, man, Embiid has just risen up the ranks. Shit talking the guy who's saving your ass on an Olympic stage just really stood out to me.
Well, I mean, Patrick Beverley retired, so we can be a little bit happy that the
he's
worst
playing in
is
Israel.
gone now,
He's going
right?
to have a career resurgence. The next 5 years now are his.
The next 5 years of Tel Aviv are his.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 So
And that's about it.
great. That's the good venting episode.
Little basketball.
Cody's on his phone, so you know Cody's checked out.
Because I'm trying to see. I wanted to follow up with what I was whining about a couple weeks ago with the college football game. Because Dave actually cared enough to text me and ask me how it was going. You didn't, Sean. You didn't care.
I knew you were going to talk about it on the show.
No, then you give me shit for double checking really quick to see how much money it's already made.
I want you to know that every time I saw reviews, I thought of you this week.
It made at least $2 million just from the early access.
Well, I mean, it made 200 million because it made it sold 2.2 million copies of the $100 million version of the game for the suckers who paid $30 to play it 3 days early.
Yep.
Never mind however many people like me bought the $70 version of it. I think it's safe to say it's gone pretty well. As I told Dave, the very quick recap of gameplay is really good. A lot of other stuff needs to be improved.
Yeah.
Hopefully by making this much money, they have all the groundwork of the game they had to start over with from a decade of not having it and can go forward. And I'm actually pretty hopeful for the franchise of it right now.
Does it concern you that what you're saying right now is copium?
No, because the game's fun to play.
No. Well, I guess what I'm saying is because the other way of looking at it is they release this product with really good gameplay and like, you know, all the other modes aren't really quite there, but then they made like all this money. Would you be concerned that the incentive is now like, oh, like that did it?
Because I think the novelties will wear off really quick of buying this version of the game again. Because if I see next year's sucks, I'm not buying it. The replayability of NCAA is great because unlike Madden, where like the players change and the teams change, you want to have a new roster, which is the only thing that they change from copy to copy. No one really plays this game for the players that are on those teams. No one gives a shit. Like the players are in the game now. That's cool. Their names are in there. They got like their $500-$600 for being in the game. But no one played NCAA for, I want to play with that team or that roster. No, you played it because you wanted to do the Heisman game or you wanted to make a dynasty.
Yeah.
And after 3 years into your dynasty, none of the original fucking players are in the game anyway.
They're gone.
So it doesn't matter. So
what star recruit did you do?
What do you mean?
Did you do the franchise mode?
Oh yeah, I played the Heisman one. I put myself on the highest level right away because I wanted to see how quickly you'd overpower yourself. It took 4 games.
Yeah, I was gonna say
I'm 99 overall in 4 games.
I heard that it's really like a difficulty setting in disguise. If you go like 2-star recruit or whatever the term is,
it basically
it's really hard.
Yeah, like taking an underdog looks like it's extremely difficult.
Yeah, never mind the gameplay mode of rookies super easy. Pro was weird. It was rubber banding really, really hard because I was up 28-0 in the first quarter on Pro, and all of a sudden I was up 35-28, and everything I was doing was like easily being stopped. I'm like, wow, this just feels like fucking 2K. And then I've read a lot of people who are like on the Dynasty mode, which they always be really good at the game and they can handle it, are getting fucking wrecked by the computer over and over. I'm like, good, that's what it should be.
What intrigues me was I read a review that was like, unlike some of the other sports game story modes, nothing is like exactly given to you, especially in the hard difficulties.
Yeah.
It's like if you don't hack it, you're just like stuck.
And there's a way to hack it on Heisman. You play on rookie, you start as a 5-star recruit, you score 150 points as a quarterback, you get all the experience points, boom, you're done.
Yeah.
Like I'm playing a Dynasty on Pro is where the games I'm playing. I'm still beating people pretty handily because again, I've played this game for a long time, so it's not that overly difficult. But like my coach is still like a B- after starting at like a C- or a C, like on their thing. It's going to take years to get up to being on the good team, which is the fun thing to do is start with a shit team and work your way up. You don't want to start at like Georgia as the head coach. What the fuck's the fun in that? I started at UMass and I'm coaching UMass's shit team to get better and then leave for their job and all that. And while I think that a couple of those things are broken, they could advance a little bit more. I know that they rushed this game out a little bit once they got the clearance to go ahead and do it. And so much of the time spent was mapping stadiums. They had to map 150 stadiums into this thing. And there's a lot of work. And I've read that that's the most time exhaustive thing to do. And that hopefully, maybe they'll make the Heisman mode a little bit better. Hopefully they'll get the mascots in to be able to play with them again. There's the ways that they can do it that people will be like, yeah, I'm buying that because you added this one little tiny improvement. And I think that the franchise will fall off pretty heavily if people don't see that because the expectations for this are higher than they ever are for Madden.
There's like an overlap of like a Souls-like and this difficulty mode that is really appealing to me. Of like you have to succeed.
Wow.
It's not going to be auto success, and like you're going to have to go figure it out. And that's fun to me. So I am more likely to play. I'm not going to play this game, I don't think, but I'm more likely to play it than I've ever been with a college football.
You know what the best part is, Sean? What ends up happening and what happened to me in the previous versions is that you get an emotional connection to those tiny teams. I still have an affinity to the Troy Trojans because of what I did with them in NCAA 2013. Yeah. Like I brought them up to the promised land, man. The Troy Trojans, it was great. And like you actually have a little bit of this like, hey, they're my team.
Yeah, whereas like in the NBA 2K story mode, even when it's good, you're like, well, almost no matter what you do, you're going to find a way to make it up. This kind of builds around that.
As fucked up as it sounds, when you play a Dynasty and you have to work really hard and invest the fake hours into recruiting guys, and then you finally get a guy and he's like an athlete and you make him a wide receiver and a quarterback, it makes it hard to leave that job for like when like LSU comes calling all of a sudden because you're like, but fuck, I recruited this guy and I spent so much time and now he's my superstar that I like created. In Madden, when you go into free agency, you're just giving guys fake money. And like really it ends up being they take the most money. And that's just like Madden's never fixed this problem where it's like if you give them a lot of money, they take the money. All the little team factors on that don't fucking matter. From what I've seen so far in Dynasty of one season of recruiting, they kind of care when your facilities suck. They kind of care when your academics suck or are C- or whatever. I, as UMass, lost basically every recruit I tried to get to fucking Syracuse. It was really annoying. And I'm like, it kind of makes sense.
What Jason asked what the final boss name is for that, like a Dark Souls final boss.
Nick Saban.
And I'm thinking
Nick Saban.
What?
Nick Saban.
I was thinking Nick Saban.
Except for he's not in the game. Funny
I also
enough.
thought Tim Tebow, which doesn't make any sense,
It
but
doesn't
I
make
thought
any
that
sense.
makes sense. You know, in a way, Tim Tebow shows up.
That's the one last note I have is holy shit is the commentary bad.
Oh yeah,
It is so bad. Funny enough, they actually made two teams: a lower level TV team and the prestigious TV team. The prestigious one, Chris Fowler doesn't sound like he gives a shit, and Kirk Herbstreit is boring as he's always has been. And the lower level, Reese Davis, for people who watch college football know these names, Reese Davis is fucking screaming and pumped up and every fucking play over and over again. So the lower level commentary is so much better than the prestigious championship game commentary. Never mind the fact that when I'm the number one run defense in the country and you acknowledge it on the game, and then 1 quarter later say they should really be running on them. They're weak on run defense. I'm like, guys, what the fuck did you code wrong to get this shit in here badly? Someone like, I ran it back an interception for a touchdown. They're like, and the quarterback goes over 300 yards. I'm like, you guys have a massive, massive work because the commentary is fucking
still better than Clark
horrific.
Kellogg.
It probably is.
Yes.
At least in
Greg
NBA
Anderson.
can acknowledge when there's a blowout. This game, I'm up 130-7, and they don't realize I'm up 130 points. They're just like, oh, they scored
Everything
again.
rides on this next blow.
Exactly. They
possession coming
fucking
up
do
here.
that. It's 3rd and long right now. I'm like, man, I'm up by 125. It's fine.
You know, I think it's important to note that in this game, you can overly aggressively text back somebody who you're trying to date and get ghosted. I think that's fun.
We're starting to get closer to my dream game.
Kind of, yeah. But more importantly, I think they did it the right way, which is nail the gameplay first, because the gameplay looks super fun.
Yeah.
I'm tempted to play it. I've had 0 time, so I haven't even really thought about trying to download it or something, but I probably will eventually. But the point is, if the gameplay is good from the start, you can fix the other stuff a lot easier. Not to say it's not hard work, especially commentary. To get to 2K NBA, where it is now, has taken a long time to have this more like adaptive commentary that fits every situation. But you can fix the presentation, you can fix the bells and whistles, you can add to the Heisman mode, you can make it so rosters are more editable. Those are all things you can do for next year and bring back people easily. So pretty good start for them, all things considered.
I was shocked when I went in and I'm like, this feels really similar to the other one, but brought along in, a decade since we had the last one. And I got in there and, like, again, when I was texting Dave, I'm like, the coolest part is I feel like they really did nail the drastic stylistic differences across so many schools on these playbooks. Because I have a cool playbook that I started using for one of the schools that I committed to in the Heisman mode. And it's got a nice little spread thing. It's got a bunch of option plays. I'm like, this is great. I can go 5 out and just chuck the ball over and over again, or I can line up an I formation and do some stuff. There's some motions that get you into like different triple options. I'm like, it's fun. I can run a bunch of different plays. Like, I can be blowing somebody out. I'm like, I'm only going to run option plays this entire quarter. And there's still some strategy for me to figure out how to do it right, even on the easiest mode. And it's like, if you can get me to play, I've played so many hours this game already. I don't play video games very often, and I've played a lot of this one. To go in and just be like, I'm going to use a different playbook. I'm going to use different plays on this thing. And that's the way you can make sports games replayable, is if the in-game gameplay can actually be different, because Madden's fucking boring after a while. The NFL offenses are boring when it comes to video games, and there's some weird quirks like I can shell my defense and show cover 3 when I'm actually in man and shit like that against your friends when you play, there's some quirky shit you can do to actually start doing some strategic things that no one has ever bothered to do for football games before.
Nice. Ascended Nick Saban steps onto the field, and the choir starts singing.
He's retired. He retired.
He pulls a bone sword from his throat. Prepare for
Yeah, I think retiring makes him more dangerous, if anything, because now he can show up anywhere.
Yeah.
It's not just when you play Alabama.
Do you want to see him walking up to you on a football field with a bone sword if he's retired?
It's really comical that they got all the player names in, by the way, and all the coaches are fake. They didn't pay for all the coaches' names to be in there.
Coaches
so
have
like
plenty of money anyways. Fuck them.
Yeah, exactly. It was like it's just hilarious to see the random computer generated guys that are your coaches. It's so funny.
I like this. Jason and I are going to make a football Dark Souls game.
Perfect.
And it's going to have, strangely, not very much football.
Then I won't buy it.
But it's just going to have a lot of Nick Saban and Tim Tebow.
Okay.
You could just make them in Dark Souls. You know that, right?
Yeah. But this is going to be on. It's going to have the trappings of a football game.
Okay.
Dave's going to love it. He loves.
I will play it. That'd be great. If it's like Dark Souls, you know I'm in.
Great.
Everybody's here next week, right? No one's out next week?
I think so.
So then I think next week will be the game show. For real. It's almost done. I actually put in some work on it late last night because I couldn't sleep. So
Doug gets it.
It's approaching done. and it will be done for next time.
Great. I'm working on excuses for when I lose. It's going to be airtight.
Make sure you run those by Maisie first to make sure that she thinks they're legitimate.
You need
Okay,
to need to read the excuses in Biden's voice, though, please. Thank you.
Brain fog. I got COVID.
It's
It's
going to
not
be a
my
tough
fault.
look for you, by the way, because the spelling bee's in the next episode. So
I forgot how to spell. It's going to be great. Well, that's why if I miss it, I'm going to have a plethora of excuses. So it'll be fine.
So you can do the Biden voice. I'll do a Trump voice.
Okay.
Oh, we'll spell win. WIN. That's how we win this election, everybody.
Great. And people are just going to love it. They love being brought
It'll be-
back to
yep.
the election constantly.
Yep.
Make it 3 weeks in a row. It's fine.
Awesome.
I
Great.
like escapism directly into the thing you're trying to escape from.
Yeah. Yeah.
All the way till November, baby.
Oh boy. And we'll probably still do one more election episode. Neither of these last two really counts as that. We'll get to that as we get closer to November, but for the time being, hopefully there's no more massive news and we can just have a nice game show next week and not talk about any of this. That's the goal. We will see you then. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. As always, you can find us on youtube.com/@GrayAreasLive, where the live podcast happens every Tuesday night. Join in. Your chats can be on the screen. We'll acknowledge you. It'll be fun. And also, you can go to grayareas.live for an archive of all of our posts from the last 13 and a half years. We'll see you next week.